Hi, today we'll be coding a loading animation inspired by the one you see right here, with two worms moving on an infinity circuit. I recently coded something similar, and I think it came out really well, but I still have this nagging feeling about having used 4 HTML elements for it. And I can't help but wonder, isn't there a way to do this using a single div? Well, that's what we'll be coding today. We have our one div right there, and we're going to maximize the CSS because we won't be writing anything else. We're going to have our element, and quick side note, I don't advise anyone to use emoji classes in a real project, but here on CodePen, where it's all fun and games, anything goes. So yeah, we'll be using it. We're going to have two pseudo elements, each corresponding to one of the two loops of our infinity circuit. So we're going to have before for one loop and after for the other loop. And of course content, nothing shows up otherwise. Then layout. If you've seen my previous videos, then you know I like to do something like this. So on the body and on all div elements, just set display grid, and this really simplifies things. Next, we'll be setting a padding for our pseudo elements, and this is basically going to be the inner radius of our infinity loops. So we're going to have 5 We're also going to set a border width, and this is going to be the thickness of the worms. So 40 pixels, and we're also going to have a rounding radius for the ends of the worms. That's going to be half the border width, so 0.5b. So here we're going to have border solid, let's make it red for now, and set padding. Yeah, if I could use a keyboard, that would be great. Not quite what we had in mind, but we'll soon fix that. So place self, center. The default is stretched, which is why they were stretched previously. Now let's round things up. Okay, now we need to make those two borders overlap. So the bottom one there and the top one there. So margin and minus the radius vertically and 0 horizontally, and let's also set a padding here. Okay, now let's move on to the background, and we're going to have a gradient, not a linear one, but we don't have autocomplete for conic, which I think is a pity. So we're going to have transparent, blue, transparent. Okay, let's align stuff properly, and then we'll move on to stop positions. And the stop positions are going to depend on a K custom property, which we're going to be animating to get that worm motion. So stop positions, we're going to compute them using that K. So everything is going to be relative to a full circle, which is 100%, and we're going to have a fraction of it. So here we're going to have K minus 0.25, for example. So 0.25 is a quarter, and in this case it means minus a quarter of the circle. We're going to have a sharp transition there, so we're going to have 0% for sharp transition, and then here we're going to get rid of that part. We're going to have again a sharp transition there, and we're going to take everything and copy paste it and have a second conic gradient, and here we're going to move it by half a circle. So we're basically going to subtract 0.5, which is half. Okay, so this is going to give us 0.75 because you already have minus 0.25, and minus a further 0.5 is going to give us minus 0.75, and here we're going to have just minus 0.5 because we had minus 0 practically there. So here we're going to have orange. Okay, now let's get rid of that. So we're going to have transparent. Now that doesn't quite look right, and it's because of a property called background origin. Now the value of this property by default is padding box, and the background size is relative to the value of this property, which in this case is the padding box. Now there's a bit more in an article which I will be linking in the description, but for now just know that we need to change background origin to border box, and this fixes things because our background size here is 100%, and with the default padding box it's 100% of the padding box, but now it's 100% of the border box. So having done this, let's get rid of the inner part, and we're going to use a mask. So this is going to be a radial gradient, and we're going to have transparent to red, and it can be anything there. It just needs to have an alpha of 1. I pick red because it only has 3 characters. So yeah, this is going to go up to the padding. So yeah, it looks nice. Next step, animation. So let's set an animation duration. Let's make it a bit bigger so that we can see stuff in a bit more detail. And we're going to use that custom property because we're going to need to register it before we can animate it. So property, okay, we're going to have syntax. This is like a type. Number, initial value 0, so we animate from 0. Inherits is a good joke because we don't have anything to inherit to inside pseudo elements, so we're going to set it to false. This is probably better for performance as well. So let's get rid of that there, and we're going to have a set of keyframes here. Keyframes k 2, so we go up to a k value of 2. So here we're going to have animation k, that animation duration, we're going to make it linear, infinite. Okay, so let's see some motion. Okay, nice. But the thing is, we're going to have to keep some things different in between those two infinity loops. So to do that in a clever and compact manner, we're going to use a switch custom property. Now, this is something I detailed in a massive article, which is going to be linked in the description as well. But for now, just know that we'll be setting an I to 0 right here, and then we're going to switch its value to 1 on the after. So on the after, we'll be switching the I value to 1. So then we can set here an animation delay of I times minus half the animation duration. So no delay for the before, where I is 0, delay only for the after. Then we're going to have transform, and we're going to have a scale x. This one is going to be calc 2 times I minus 1. So if I is 0, then this is going to be minus 1. If I is 1, this is going to be 1. And of course we need the spacing around the minus inside the calc, because otherwise things get broken. Next step, we're also going to need to take care of a rotate. This one is going to be calc. So let's say I times minus 0.5 turn. Not quite it. Let's try it a bit differently. So 1 minus I. Okay, this works fine. And one thing to note here is 1 minus I is basically not I. Again, this is something I wrote about. I'm going to be linking it in the description. But for now, let's get back here. So we have our worms moving on a circuit, but we need to round them. And we're going to do that with a filter, so blur and contrast. So first off, we're going to set background here, and we're going to set it to white. And we're going to set filter, blur, and we're going to use that radius for the blur radius. Then we're going to have contrast, 3 times the radius, unitless. So divided by 1 pixel. Let's see it now. So there are a few consequences of using this filter right there. One that you can notice is that our worms are shorter. So we're just going to make them longer than a quarter of a circle. So a quarter is 0.25, let's make this 0.35, and of course increase here as well. So here we're increasing the difference between 0.85 and 0.5, which is 0.35 that we have there as well. Okay, and the second consequence is that orange became yellow. And that is because this is a slide from a talk I gave. So contrast values bigger than 1 push RGB channel values towards the nearest end of the 0 to 155 interval. And if they're big enough, as it is the case in our demo right here, then they push it all the way to 0 and to 155. So we can only have one of these 8 colors. And in this case for orange, you can see we already get to yellow. That's the case here, even though the orange was different, but it still goes to yellow. Now let's fix that with a bit of hue rotate. So let's say we're going to have minus 60 degrees. Let's see it. Okay, kind of pale, so we're going to set saturate to a big value as well. Okay, much better. Something I still don't like is that blue doesn't quite look right. And let's get back to this article because I have something, I hope I can find it pretty fast. Oh, look at it. It's right here. So we actually want orange, right? And after the contrast, we have yellow, so you can set yellow before, right? But the thing is, we want a blue that's not quite the blue that we got. So let's say we're going to want a blue somewhere there. So we're safe setting magenta, and it's going to stay at magenta. So if you set yellow, it's going to stay at yellow. If you set magenta, it's going to stay at magenta because they're one of the colors that you can see right there. Okay, one of the 8 colors. They're among the 8 colors. So we can set here and here yellow. It gets pushed to yellow anyway. So orange, yellow there, it doesn't really matter. But we have a better blue this way. You can see there. Now one more thing here. Transform, rotate 90 degrees. So we have our infinity in the right position. Okay, that looks better. Now a few more fine tuning. So body, margin 0, min height, full viewport height, right? Let's also take this background from here and use inherit here, and let's have a pseudo element. So after, and let's set grid area, first row, first column, and let's use this here as well. And we're going to have let's set a background something like that. Okay, so here we're going to use mix blend mode, darken. Okay, so everything is on that gray now. And just one more thing I want to do, it's called future proofing. So basically I'm going to take that out. That's going to be a custom property. So let's just for now, this is only going to work in Chromium browsers, but just future-proofing it so the mask is cross-browser. So yeah, I won't be tweaking anything any further. I'll be leaving it at this. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, if you like the work that I'm putting out for more than 9 years now, and you want me to be able to do more in the future, please consider supporting it. You can do so by being a cool cat and becoming a patron on Patreon. The link is going to be in the description. Or if monthly support is not your style, There's also the option of a one-time donation. Again, the link is going to be in the description below. Or you can make the skater happy with a gift. The links to my Amazon wishlists are going to be in the description. Or you can at least share this to show the role what can be done in CSS these days, because honestly, I think it's pretty damn cool. In any event, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye!